It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is going to be an inspiring show, but also an opportunity for us to look back and do an audit, if you will. And in 2009, when the UN declared Nelson Mandela's birthday, International Mandela Day, on the 18th of July, Madiba called on the people of the world, not just South Africa, to honor him by uplifting their communities. So how far are we from realizing Madiba's dream? Have we lost focus? Where have we faltered? What can we do in our own capacity as individuals, not just organizations, to correct our course? Well, today we're going to attempt to answer at least one of those, not all of those questions. I can feel my panel breathing heavily next to me. We've got an amazing panel of people representing organizations that really do live out Madiba's legacy every day. From the Mbumba Foundation, we have Trek for Mandela's Sina Moyane. From the Desmond and Leah Tutu Legacy Foundation, we have CEO Janet Jobson. From the Cape Peninsula Organization for the Aged, we have the CEO, Xolani Pukwana. And finally, representing Ziko Museums, we have curator Lynn Abrahams. Guys, good morning.
Morning.
This kind of feels like a yes or no panel discussion. Like, are we getting it right? Yes or no? But I think it's certainly become more complex over the last couple of years. But we love these days, especially when it feels like there are generations that might not get it, might not truly understand why today is so important. It's not just a public holiday, but there is an opportunity for us to look forward and, of course, to look back. Lynn, maybe I can start with you. How close are we to that dream, to that ideal? Have we lost sight of where we should be going? How do you feel in your heart of hearts on this Madiba Day?
Like you said, it's a very complex thing. And I think there's a fine line between whether it's yes or no, because at moments you kind of like feel, yes, we are getting there. And at moments you feel that, whoa, we are completely off track here. And I mean, just an example, how recent during the pandemic, people came together from all walks of life, just pulling together and helping where they can, assisting, taking on the war on hunger. And that was amazing how people in the CAN networks across the country, you had Cape Town together, and you had all these CAN networks just popping up and coming together and assisting people. But then you have racism, and you have gender-based violence. You had the July insurrection. You had the tavern killings. You had all these things. You have a woman of 93 being raped by a 25-year-old. And then you say, how did we get here? I mean, I can ask myself that question over and over. And sometimes I really sit back and I think, how did we get here? Because I think Africa's biggest contribution to the world has always been our humanity.
Yeah.
So how have we lost this plot so big?
It's not just us. The world has been polarized, I think, over the last few years, more than any of us can wrap our heads around. So it stands to reason. It's always been the South African way that we almost need something to force us into action. Then we do these truly remarkable things. And we are lucky enough to have people kind of embody these notions. If we look at what the Arch represented in terms of that compassion, that humanity, he was able to apply these terms in a modern context in a way that few others have been able to do that. He seemed to be able to find a functional way of being compassionate and finding forgiveness. What did Tutu embody, do you think, in that way? Why has he become, I think, more important now and what he represents than ever before?
Yeah, and I'd agree with you that I think at the moment we really need the Arch and we need Madiba. We need to find our common humanity again. And that's something that both the Arch and the Madiba somehow managed to do. I mean, they did it publicly for us. They showed us publicly how to relate to each other, how to find a way to step across the divide. And really speak into the soul of humanity. But they also did it in really small ways every day. So I mean, I remember speaking to someone about how Mandela's security security guards would always get so frustrated with him because wherever he was, he would go up to crowds of people just to say hello. And the Arch, you know, if you lived in Milnerton, you know, you would walk around the neighborhood picking up litter on the side of the street. So there's sort of this ability to embody a public, inspiring, profound vision for humanity.
Yeah, almost this mystical creature that's,
Yeah, but then also matched by a very genuine, lived reality of humanity in which they genuinely connected. I mean, you know, anyone would tell you the Arch and Madiba were the same. They would walk into a room and they'd greet the most humble person in the room first, not the most important person. And
Well, it's so funny. I went to interview the Arch, one of the greatest moments of my career, and I took my mother with, thinking this was going to be a masterful stroke. He ended up interviewing her for the next 2 hours and having tea, and I kind of just sat there and watched and filmed it.
Yeah.
But I really do understand that it's something that needs to play out on a bigger scale, and we have that opportunity on a day like today with this upswinging in kind of certainly the media focus, but it needs to be every day. It needs to be something that is sustainable and a pattern that gets repeated every day, especially when it comes to young girls. Now, when we look at what the Mbumba Foundation is doing at the moment, why are girls so vitally important? Should they be at the center of this discussion, do you think?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say that at the Mbumba Foundation, we don't believe one gender to be superior over the other. The Caring for Girls program was created due to a personal experience that our founder and CEO, Mr. Richard Mabasa, went through, and realized that you know, the period poverty that he was faced with in his household was not just within his household, but probably reached out to his village, you know, and South African society at large. But I think when we look at the stats in our country, you know, there's more females than there are males in the country. A lot of houses are headed by females. And, you know, we also live by that old African proverb that if you educate a boy, you know, you educate an individual. But if you educate a girl, you educate a family. And that's testament to our Caring for Girls beneficiaries, where we have a girl, her name is Mendi Sibanyoni. She, from when she started her menstrual cycle all the way through to high school, has been a beneficiary of the program. So she never missed a day of school due to you know, period poverty. We then got her into university, and she's now starting an internship and wants to give back to her village. She's doing a BCom pharmacy.
How many people is she going to help? How much of this country is she possibly going to impact? Olani, don't say a word. The way that you stare at me just says so many powerful things. Now, Olani, we're going to get onto you in just a moment. I know you work within the space of the elderly, and we have got to look at every sector of our society at the moment, because it does speak to where our heart actually is. So I'm starting to distill that I think humanity is possibly going to win out today and be our focal point, but the panel is not going anywhere. We're going to continue this discussion. Please keep those voice notes coming.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to you at home and to our wonderful panel as we continue to discuss the importance of Mandela Day and hopefully prompt you into action today. And I think now more than ever, our nation seeks Tata's guidance and vision for a South Africa that thrives with possibility. We need that true north again. From the Mbumba Foundation, we have Sina Moyane. From the Desmond and Leah Tutu Legacy Foundation, we have Janet Jobson. From the Cape Peninsula Organization for the Aged, we have Xolani Pukwana. And finally, representing Iziko Museums, we have Lynn Abrahams. And we are asking you at home, what positive changes would you like to see in South Africa, even just over the next 5 years? Drop us a voice note, 063-408-8863. Xolani, I'm going to start with you. Given you the most time to think about this answer, so let's save the world, my friend. I think Tata Madiba said it perfectly. A society that does not value its older people denies its roots and endangers its future. What is your organization doing to engage with the older community, ensure that they are not disenfranchised?
And it's amazing that our challenges are actually similar in terms of safety, dignity.
Completely, yeah.
I think CPOA, when it was first established in 1953, it was actually for those values that Madiba actually had, in that we needed to provide safe space, we needed to provide dignified spaces for those who cannot afford. We've got about 200 residents in two facilities that we provide care for, but also we have another 2,000 residents that actually can afford, but we actually cross-subsidizing, if you were, that our economic activities actually cross-subsidize our sort of welfare commitment, as it were. So we do that in providing the space that the elderly need, because it's, as you said, it's not a safe world out there, and therefore we need to have security, we need to have dignity, we need to have welfare for these residents that cannot afford. As you know, the retirement is actually an expensive commodity as well, and CPOA makes sure that those that cannot afford the full recovery of that cost, we actually have a sustainable strategy to make sure that we actually care for the aged.
They don't become a forgotten generation. We've had those voice notes coming through, and Jocelyn sent something in for us to listen to right now. Let's see what she had to say.
Morning, my Expresso family and all the viewers. Thank you for the opportunity. What positive changes I would like to see in South Africa is employment for our youth. And last but not least, no load shedding. Thank you, Jocelyn. Bye.
And just like that, our whole discussion falls down. We don't have that solution just yet, or maybe it lies in some sustainable energy path. We're not quite there yet. But there is a will. I think people, especially now after everything we've been through collectively after the last few years, we want to do more for our fellow man, but we are stretched. You know, we are spent on every level. I think emotionally we are spent. We have been traumatized financially. I think the rug has been pulled out from underneath our feet. To those people that are feeling like looking after themselves is a difficult enough proposition, why should they go out and do something for someone else today?
So I think it's important for people to understand that they don't have to do something on a large scale. Something small, and if you do it collectively, right, the impact is therefore much greater. Just a classic example is we run a sanitary towel collection program with the Dis-Chem Foundation and Dis-Chem Pharmacies called Million Comforts. For as little as 10 Rand, you can keep a girl child in school for a month. Wow. And each brand will match that pack, so that's 2 months. You know, but also I think people must realize that it doesn't always have to be financial. It could be you imparting your skills. It could be you giving time.
Mentorship.
Absolutely.
That level of skill, your emotional tools,
yes,
those sorts of things are going to be just as meaningful and helpful. Young people, the youth, the youth, the youth. We love to scream the youth, almost in a way of saying, well, it's going to be their problem, so you guys can deal with that. But we need a younger generation now to step up and take hold of the situation. But there is only so much we can do in passing that baton on. Why are young people so important, do you think, right now? And what possibly do they possess that is crucial for this to pan out? Give me some hope here.
Well, I mean, I think the thing that's really important to understand is that at every point of crisis in the world, young people are the people that have stepped forward.
Yeah.
You know, if you even think of Mandela, he was a young man when he started the Youth League, when he really got into activism. We think of him as this older figure, but actually...
statesman, but he
started as this young activist. And I've been really lucky in my work for the last decade to be working with young people across South Africa. And there are hundreds of Madibas out there, thousands of them, working every single day at a community level to make things better in this country. The challenge is that their voices aren't amplified, that we're not crossing the divides in our society to really get into relationship. I love what you said about mentorship, because part of the challenge of a divided society is that we miss out on the talents of the majority of our young people, and they are talented, and they are committed to making this country everything we could be. And the only, you know, we are fundamentally interdependent. We have to be one country coming together to solve these challenges together. And so it's really, really important that we shift our mindset about young people from being a ticking time bomb or a crisis that just needs to be solved to saying, well, what do they have? What assets do they bring to the table? How do we ignite their potential? And how do we get into relationship with each other to unlock the real talent and power that they have as a generation?
Connections, connections, connections. You're looking at ridiculous. The last stats I heard, nearly 3/4 of youth under the age of 25 are unemployed now in our country, which I don't even know if that's on the money, but it's a sobering statistic. So stop thinking about what they are not having access to right now and what they could be doing. Think about those connections today. How can you make those connections? Who can you go out and make a connection with right now? In fact, the panel is not going anywhere. We're going to continue this discussion. I'm telling you, we will solve all of South Africa's problems in the next 5 minutes. Stick around.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. Now, on Mandela Day, citizens are encouraged to spend at least, I'm going to say, 67 minutes of their time in service to others in need. And these are in appreciation of the 67 years that Nelson Mandela spent fighting for justice, equality, and human rights, not just for South Africans, but for all humanity. And if you still haven't figured out how you're going to spend your 67 minutes, well, listen up. Our panel, representing a host of charitable, amazing organizations, will clue you in on how you can spread some of that Madiba magic. We are back with Sina Moyane, Janet Jobson, Xolani Pukwana, and Lynn Abrahams. And of course, we've had some wonderful voice notes coming through from you this morning. So actually, let's get in with one of them right now from Colleen. Let's hear what she had to say.
Good morning, Expresso. Yes, I think it is time that we need a new change in South Africa. And As you can see, many are speaking about jobs. Yes, we do need jobs. And I think we can better this by getting the crime rate lessened. And many more to come for South Africa. Because if we look at it, our generation, our future generation, needs a better place in this new South Africa. We're looking forward for it. Thank you.
Thank you to Colleen. Angel also dropped us a voice note. Let's hear what she had to say.
Good morning, everybody. The changes I would like to see in 5 years is more equal rights for all youth in South Africa. Thank you very much. You must have a nice day, everybody.
Angel, she was emphatic. You must have a nice day. So please, go and do that. We will do our absolute best. Thank you, Angel. Lest we forget, Lynn, lest we forget, we need to know where we've come from to know where we are going. It sounds like a cliche, but it's probably more important now than ever. Why do you think it's so important that that younger generation understands where we have come from? And what are you guys doing this year for Mandela Day to help kind of provide that platform?
I think it's very important that we know where we come from. And I think also in terms of shaping our identities, and specifically post-apartheid, our identities. And
finding our
what
identity.
Is it? Yes, what makes us the South African nation, emerging from where we have emerged from. And I think the work that we do through our exhibitions, through public programming, through education, it's a lot of educating in terms of where is it that we come from and how did we move from there but to where we are now. I think there's a lot, like, for example, one of the exhibitions that I was involved in is about 1976, but specifically zooming in on the Western Cape chapter of 1976. Because everybody talks about Soweto and what happened in Soweto, but yet in the Western Cape we had about 148 plus people who passed away between August 1976 and January 1977, and you hardly hear that kind of story.
Not just one day.
And the work, the work that we do, it kind of like people can find themselves in what it is that we do. So a younger person from 1976 could easily have been the Madiba of that time. So it is like, really, this is where we are, we represent, we understand, but also this is where we... So a part of that exhibition focuses on... that time it was 25 years of a democracy, really reflecting, inviting the visitor to kind of like share in that reflection, but also to think is, what is it that you do as a South African to make things different? Because we come from this past, we have the lessons from the past. This is where we're going to. But what is it that we are doing? Yes, we inspire that action, inspire conversation. And I mean, we have an exhibition on Madiba as well at the South African Museum. So I think there's a lot of the work that we as museums do, and sometimes it's not often seen. But I always say, I like to do my work so that we can connect the uncle in Oranje with the Tannie from Elsies River, you know, because,
connection.
you know, I think it is these systems that drew us apart, but ultimately, if we zoom in, we are so much more one.
We've all been in the same country now for some time. That's the thing. We've all been through this
even
journey
before,
together.
so it was like this narratives from the past that divided us. But if you really zoom in, then you see that we are actually, there's a thread that runs through all of us, you know.
And we need young people now to see themselves represented in the heroes of the past, to understand that sense of sacrifice, I think, most importantly now. Xolani, what are you guys up to today? What are you going to be doing to represent Mandela Day, and how can we help?
Today, we actually have the two facilities that I've mentioned. One in Grassy Park, Lotus River Place, where we've got about 120 residents that we are actually feeding. So again, because we basically recommitting the organization now, because as a new CEO as well for the organization, I'm looking at recommitting the organization to its original values, if you were, to actually get our own residents to actually have that spirit of Ubuntu that Madiba actually had. So our residents have now donated for the less privileged residents in our community. So we are actually having a nice lunch for them. We've got donations that our own residents have actually given the donations for the less privileged now to actually have the luxuries on this given day. But again, it shouldn't be limited for just about today. But also we've got at Erica, where we've got another 80 residents there that we will be feeding. We've got a goodie bag for them because, as you said, even the smallest thing on these days, it makes them feel good that they are being looked at. Somebody actually cares.
Just cook someone a meal.
Indeed.
You'd be amazed.
Indeed.
Just cook someone a meal. Oh, Xolani, good luck today. Thank you to all of you for the work that you're doing in your individual capacities. I'm not saying it's a competition, but she's climbing Kilimanjaro. I'm just putting it out there, okay? No, just keep doing what you are doing every day. That is the key here, that individuals stand up and organizations follow suit. We're going to keep all of their organizations details up on our social media platforms so you can get involved if you want to. But I think the take home for me today is you need to do something. Just something small today for someone else. That is what Madiba Day is all about.